Well, thank you for coming to the opening. It's so nice to see you here. I did want to give a few remarks because I just think that this topic and the effort that people put into building the monument deserve a few remarks. So I'll just begin. As I was preparing this exhibit, a couple of obvious thoughts occurred to me. One is that no one is alive today who has ever not seen Fort William Henry, who has not had it as part of our landscape. For us, it's always simply been there. And secondly, I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's probably not. It took me a long time to realize that the fort that we see is not part of the original fort, that it is in fact a reconstruction that was built in the early 20th century. Not long ago, we lost a dear member of the OBHS community named Larry Hayter. And whenever we took a group of school children to colonial Pemaquid, the thing he most wanted to share with those kids was that we wouldn't have a memorial fort if there hadn't been people before us who thought that it was important to remember and honor the history of Pemaquid, who thought that it was important to build something here so that people in the future, people like us, would see it and would remember that important events took place here. I always appreciated that moment, and his message, and I always took a moment to feel some gratitude for those who went before us. But it wasn't until doing research for this project that I finally understood just how much time and how much effort that project had been to get the memorial built. In fact, it took 40 years from the first large public gathering, which inspired the idea of building a monument, and that was the first field day of the Maine Historical Society in 1869. Read about it in that corner. To the final dedication of the fort in 1909. It took so long, in fact, that at least 13 of the 17 local people who formed the Pemaquid Monument Association had passed away and never saw the monument, including James Partridge, who had owned the land for the monument and who had donated it. He actually donated that land in 1871. But luckily there were others who cared enough to carry on with that mission that other people had started. And just a note, that's what us historical societies do. We try to preserve history not only for ourselves, we find it interesting, but for those in the future. So I hope you'll find this story as interesting as I did when I was researching it. As you'll see, I've arranged it in chronological order, starting in that far corner and moving in a clockwise direction. And I did that so that you can travel through those 40 years and get an idea of how much effort it took. One thing I'd like to mention, it's mentioned only in passing as you go through the exhibit, and that is the relationship between the promotion of Pemaquid's history, as seen here, and the development of tourism in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The development of tourism was an important part of Bristol's economy then, as it is now. Once Cartland started displaying the relics and a section of the cobblestone streets and revealing the foundation of the former fort tower, Pemaquid became a popular tourist destination, and one which the community capitalized on as it built hotels and started selling land for summer cottages. And Bristol's historical sites are still a big draw for our summer tourists. Finally, I want to mention that although many of the images you'll see here are part of the OBHS collections, there are also a number of very important pieces that are not part of our collections and that have been loaned to us specifically for this exhibit. First, I'd like to mention the Maine Historical Society, from whom who loaned us 4 really great images from their collection. Thanks also go to Kendall and Carla Fawcett, who loaned us several of the beautiful souvenir china pieces that are here on display, including the rare witch's boot right there. So I hope you'll notice that when you go by. And finally, I'd like to thank Jim Levis, who owns a large collection of Pemaquid memorabilia and souvenir china, and who loaned us many of the items that are on display in these two display cabinets. The exhibit would be much duller without all of these wonderful additions from our three lenders. And I'd also like to mention Hammond Lumber, because Hammond Lumber has made a donation which has helped with the expenses of producing this exhibit. So, thank you very much and welcome to the exhibit.